Hi, this is Zinnia Drake, and this is Michael Wilkinson, and today we're going to talk about just different subjects that we want to talk about. We're we were thinking about teleportation, but we can talk about something else. I was thinking, there's a lot of good ideas out there that we could talk about. So it's up to you whether you want to talk about that or not. But
well, I really don't know too much at all about it.
No.
So you'll just have to fill me in on exactly what this is for and how it's going to be used.
Well, this is more an art film about teleportation and the future of it. There have been some things on the news that came out that was a pretty monumental discoveries dealing with quantum teleportation and looking at the aspects of it and looking at what it could be used for and some of the things to go along with that. One of the ideas, we had a recording last time, and we had some glitches, so we couldn't put it out. But we were trying to work on this recording and get it going with both of us talking about it and kind of bringing back some of the ideas that we had before. If there's anything sensitive on it, we can edit it out. You remember what we were talking about, or?
Well, can you? One thing I want to ask is, this. What is this? You call it? Teleportation.
Yeah, teleportation.
Teleportation.
Yeah.
Exactly what would they be using that for?
Teleportation is a device that used to take it. It's still scientific, but you use a device to transport instantaneously from one spot to another spot where the pad is or where you've been moved to. Like on Star Trek.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the example of teleportation. There are several ways to do that. One is they could teleport a gateway towards something else. And that's one way of getting a person from one place to another through like a wormhole. They've talked about, with Einstein, they've talked about wormholes and using wormholes to travel. And so I personally like the gate concept and not the turn into a into light and retransmit yourself into a signal. That signal's transmitted somewhere, then you're re-put together at that place in that other area. Some people would say that is kind of... How's the light here? Is it good?
Mm-hmm.
It looks good. I'm getting light on the camera. But, you know, they're figuring out the math to this. I don't know if they figured it out completely, because I think some of the news can be fictionalized. And so I don't know, being this electronic transfer technology, I don't know if it's really real. But if it is real, and someday it could be real, we could talk about the potential it has, what we think could happen in the future with it, to the point that we can know how to legislate this as an invention, what parameters we should go about doing certain things with, where we could take energy and move energy towards. And this is another idea that I had, is if you could turn yourself from a solid matter to a proton to a electron, you could move on a wave and move through that wave towards where the signal is being transmitted towards. And, you know, you would have to create probably a new kind of wave to do that. Maybe a teleportation kind of wave. And you would be able to look at the object and change the object to be able to be moved into that object, then have that wave retransmitted to where the electrons were moved into a device where they would be retransmitted back into a human being. So this is more like transformation. So it's kind of like, I would say it's more fiction. Honestly, I'd say it's more fiction. I don't really believe that we have it, but I just think that this is a... Does it look good on here? I don't know if it's...
Is it, exactly what is it now? It's
Well, it's a teleportation wave.
But it hasn't really been
Invented.
invented.
I'm just being more perspective about it. Maybe we could figure something out with that. But if you're able to minute a wave or convert a wave into something else, you may be able to convert that wave to do certain things. So, I mean, we already moved transmissions other places with waves, because that's how radio works. But you know, there's a lot of things that are really powerful with this technology and everything, and it could change the world. I think it really could. But if we could get to the point where we could put together worlds and solar systems to be able to create a planetary system, then we could have more life in the universe. And so, you know, God created these things instantaneously. Why can't man have a similar thing? You know, and then we go back to the idea of what came first, the chicken or the egg. You know, and so we know that God created everything, and so, I mean, we could create other planets to be in our solar system. We could create, and I'm more hesitant at creating other planets in our solar system, because the gravitational forces may change in our planetary system, and you know, more moving it further out, building another sun, and making a planetary system that way.
Well, can they build on the sun because it's so hot? I wouldn't think they could build on it.
Well, I don't know if they could build on the sun. I mean, basically, you would find something like something where there was enough material, and then you would teleport that material from the planet and create a planet out of that, or create a sun out of that. And so you would need to teleport something from a far distance. So we probably would have to be a planetary, uh, uh, multi-planetary civilization with light speed capability, to be able to do that. And you know, this stuff is you know, it you can say it's sci-fi, but this stuff could be made in maybe a few thousand years, you know, and create all that stuff, create an atmosphere. You would have to teleport that stuff from space. Everything that you would need for a planet, you would teleport that for that planet. And
so they're really trying to make another planet, right?
No, Grandma.
Huh?
This is hypothetical.
Oh.
This is hypothetical. But this was an idea, is you have some type of planet maker, or teleportate. They would call it teleport planet or something like that, and create worlds to do that with teleportation. But you would need a really advanced civilization to do that, because you'd have to have something where you could be able to travel through through electricity, and so you'd have to figure out how to do that, whether you'd have tiny little ships or something, that carry the object to the next spot. But you're still reaching new obstacles and everything, trying to get there. But I was thinking, you would need force fields and all these things to create an object being put somewhere else. Like, I had the idea of light being teleported somewhere else with small little ships that are tiny, tiny, tiny ships. But you probably would need a shrink ray to do that, and we don't have a shrink ray or tiny, tiny ships. But this was an idea that I saw as a possibility later on in the future. What do you think?
So it's going to take these scientists and everything a long time to develop this, right?
Well, it may be 10,000 years before they develop this. Yeah.
Well, I don't think we'll have to worry about that. I have a hard time just thinking about this week.
Yeah.
10,000 years. I don't know. I don't know if we need to be worrying about that.
Yeah. Well, maybe someone in the future could create a teleport planet and create all this stuff way in the future, long after we're both gone. But I think that would be amazing. If they could do that with human civilization. But and if I'm thought as a thinker, if we're both thought as thinkers, later on,
Well, I don't know. It's gonna take a lot of wisdom and knowledge to develop this kind of stuff. I don't know if we have that much people or scientists or so forth that just have that much mastery over their knowledge that they can develop this stuff.
Them robots are pretty smart. Maybe they can use the whole internet to figure this stuff out. But I think that there's a lot of things that they need to do this. And we want to create different things from these things. We're creating a futuristic world, and we need the power to do so. But I guess I'm a bit of a teleport expert. I don't have the physics background, but I do think, from my experience, that they could be able to do this after a while. But it's really cool.
So this teleport, it's like it can move something from one place to another.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know how they're gonna do this, but it's a little too weird for me. As I said, I'm just trying to manage my life from day to day, however I can take care of things. And I know there's a lot of scientific stuff in the world now that I don't understand, and not too many people do understand it enough to do anything about it. It's just like a few people have basic knowledge of it.
Yeah, I mean, we're still piecing together the whole thing, and we don't know the whole thing. And that's where our people's been for a long time. You had scientists say, well, maybe this may have this, and maybe they may have this, and we don't know what all it takes to create a teleportation pad, and all what it takes to create a supercomputer that puts all that stuff in there, and the collection depository for that, and how that works. But we have to figure out how to do all that and everything. But it's pretty complex. How you're gonna make that work and do that safely. I mean, there's sure you got objects that you can teleport, and then you got people, and that's a different ball game altogether. How are you gonna keep that thing alive? And and you know, I wouldn't know how we would. You'd first have to start with my, in a jar, with bacteria or something, and see if a cell survives. Because you'd really need to see how a cell would survive, and everything, and that's one thing that they need to do more, is understand how cells survive instead of how a rat survives, and they can save lives of rats, and use it on you know some produce or something like that, um, which is a bacteria kind of cell. It's just a cell. But I personally don't want anything to be used on anything that shouldn't be used on. But
They have to have the knowledge to know that they can't do this, and so that's it's it's basically a thing of having the knowledge on what they could do or what they could not do.
yeah.
So I'm not sure exactly what it would be that they would be trying to accomplish with this kind of thing. So
It would. It's more learning how to do electronic transference, which is sci-fi to people, and really it could be just sci-fi, but you're trying to move an object through a particle transformation, and then put all of it back together and say, this is going to be the same person again. And it's like, how do I not make the chicken raw, but how am I going to put a person back together? And so that's why you would use a gateway to create ways to go through things. You wouldn't use the teleporter. But,
is this mostly like it would be done like with electrical energy or something like that?
Something like that. You would have to use some type of energy or some type of wave transmission to do that. So you probably need a satellite on top of it to move the object to one place to another. You're probably talking about major transmission power and everything. But it's an interesting idea, and we're kind of in the dark about it. But we're still moving kind of in the dark ages of teleportation. We're kind of thinking about the concept, but we haven't really put it together to make it work. And so we're still trying to make it work, but I'm gonna we're gonna get back to this on another day, because I can only record so much video on this, because this is a shorter film on this, but it's going to be longer once it's done. But I can only film so long on this camera to do so. So I'm going to end it for right now.
And people have to have the knowledge and to have sort of like some kind of a time plan to do this. But I'm not sure. I'm not sure very well what all this stuff would be able to do for the citizens of the world.
Yeah, when we were talking about teleportation, and this is part 2 of it, and so we can get some more time on this, and basically talking about the science that you have to go into requires a lot of because they use in order to create a wave with science, it requires some type of non-lethal radiation to do that. But you have to be able to move that wave across the world, and you would have to do that safely. And so there would be a lot of parameters you have to go into, because a lot of the science that goes into wave production is really sensitive. And you have to do this in a way that is safe for people. So you would have to, really know what you're doing, and really have to do this safely, because you can hurt yourself doing this doing these projects to do this. And so you want to be able to do this in a way that is in a lab with the right gear. So you really need a degree to do this, and really a lot of background with understanding on a lot of things. And that's really what you need to do so. And so we don't need to do this in a way that is bad for people and bad for animals and bad for everyone. But I'm more wanting people to be careful with any kind of science dealing with instrumentation like that. And so we have to, there's certain things that don't get discussed. I don't even know if I can say that. But this stuff is more kept at bay, I think, too, and because it's so sensitive dealing with wave theory. We don't want people hurt from that. And so that's a part of science that's understood, but it's not understood by everyone. But it's more, you don't want to be hurt by all this stuff. And so that's why you would need a lab, and you would need good things to do that with. And so I highly advise that you don't get exposed to radiation and get cancer and die a horrible death. So that's what would happen with that, I think, honestly. And so you're going about this in a way that is hard for people to deal with anything if you don't do this in the right way. So that's why I have to include that warning, because you're putting people's lives at jeopardy with this. And so that's why it's more of a gateway and not a electronic transmission. But there's a lot of people that are looking at this from a scientific perspective, and we've had people in the past like Marie Curie, who who discovered radium and radiation, and died from radiation. She carried around isotopes in her pocket, and that killed her. And the people didn't understand the harmfulness of radiation back then. And so what it could do to the planet is bad. And so you want to be able to really know what you're doing before you get into any kind of radiation. You don't want to have radiation. It's like it's like this. It's not like The Simpsons where they go in and they play around with isotopes and then they die because it's you would die from this. So that's why I have to give that warning. And so that's what I have to say about that. I'm going to move on and go on to the next part. But I'm going to end this part and just include this as another thing.
I don't know what we're trying to do in the world. I know there's a lot of scientists working on a lot of different things, and it takes a long amount of time to check all this stuff out, see how it can work and what can be done with it.
Yeah, it's very interesting technology. And like I said, we have to, I think an 8-minute warning is long enough. But, we have to remember that we know to operate this stuff with security and with smarts and with safety. And so that's the 3 tiers that need to be covered with that. And,
You have to sort of work slowly and carefully about what you're trying to work out to do.
Yeah. So,
because bad things could happen if you start rushing in and doing stuff you don't know anything about. Not enough people are smart enough about it, and they just have to have a slow process of gaining the knowledge to do this.
yeah.
And the thing is, you have to be careful that people don't get too impatient and rushing and doing things in a wrong way that can cause harm, because we don't know how much harm can be caused by it.
Yeah. What do you have to say?
The thing is, it's gonna take those people that are doing this stuff a lot of time to not get impatient and start rushing and say, well, you know, we're gonna, by a certain time, we're gonna try to get all this stuff done, but it's a thing they have to be patient about.
Yeah, and I want us to think this through and really do this in the right way. And so, I mean, we can't just do this with error. We have to do this with correct ways of doing so. So there's going to probably be a long time of making an object come about with just making that object, instead of making something that's, you know, alive, move from that. So, I mean, you want the cooked chicken instead of the, and, you know, you don't want to, you want the right things.
Well, it's going to take a lot of patience and going slow, and a lot of harm could be done if they start rushing too much. And so the main thing is patience and a slow rate of working things out.
Yeah.
But I don't know if they're talking about, like, say 5 years, 1 year, 15 or 20, or how they're gonna be able to work all this stuff out.
Well, I imagine, you know, this stuff takes time. So, okay. You have anything else to add?
No, that's about as much as I can think of to do about it. But I'm just saying, go slow and be patient.
Yep. Definitely.
Don't start rushing.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if they want to be setting a time span where they're going to be say, well, we're going to try to do this within 5 years or 1 year, or what is exactly what they want to do.
Well, I'm surprised.
The thing is being careful and patient.
Yep.
And it was not any need to be working stuff out that'll not be able to accomplish anything.
Yeah. Well, you need a lot of good things to make things work. But
So it's gonna take a lot of time and patience to go very slow and be careful and take care of these things in the right way so that harm doesn't come to the citizens and to the general welfare of the planet.
Yeah, I agree with that.
So I hope some of these main people that are trying to work on this, I hope they're trying to think carefully about not rushing and sort of thinking on how long it's going to take and things like that.
Yeah.
But I think they're going to have to be very watchful over what they're doing and not be trying to make sure they're not trying to rush things.
I agree. And we have, technology out there that may be able to do stuff like that. Maybe at Skunk Works or at other places that it may be just kept under wraps because it's highly dangerous, and we don't know how it can work with human beings. But if they have it, say, like on an alien ship or something, they may not be able to do that with a human being and, be able to travel from world to world. So they may have to develop the technology to do that, the source code, the scanning technology, whatever it is that is in the way to do so. But it's interesting technology, and it's something that people, they need to figure out, but they may not know where to start. So that's what I'd have to say about it.
Yeah, it's just something that we don't have the knowledge about it to start proceeding to do something.
Yeah. I mean, I don't have a ship, so I don't know.
Well, I just hope those people that are working on this stuff have the sense to go slow and just try to make sure of what they're doing or what their set goal is ahead to be taking care of this, what it's going to be used for, or what can it be helpful with.
And so we have to look at that, what it can be helpful with. I mean, they may be able to teleport, do things medicine-wise with teleportation, make a drunk person, sober. They could be able to replace needles and not have needles. They could, fix diseases by surgery using teleportation. They could, be able to biohack life to produce more fruit and more food. I mean, there's more food that could occur with this, and those are some of the things that could be used to figure out things. But we have to understand those things are important too, and figure out how to use these safety wise to get to that point. But those are some of the things that we can figure out with teleportation. Figure out maybe force fields of teleportation. How to figure out how to concentrate light from one area to another by carrying that light or energy to that area. And that's probably what would take place first before we have a whole teleportation machine, is learning how to move light to one area or another, whether it's a chemical reaction in the air or it is a light reaction that occurs. So that may be a way of developing teleportation, is you have to develop a reaction that takes a few seconds in space to create an object in space that would block different objects without hurting the object moving. So it has to be a stationary thing that's propelled and ahead of the ship that disappears on the other side. Something like that, But this is just science. What we could use for science to create a teleportation or device or a force field device, and creating where you can program it where it has different levels of shielding. Because you want the shielding to work in the right way. And so that's what you'd have to do. But that's more the ideas I had with that.
Well, it's just going to take quite a lot of time to figure all this stuff out. And I have to see if what they're trying to do is going to work. And figure out what the benefit of it would be. I don't know, it's just something I'm not too much into and giving much thought to it, because It's not something I know how to do. It's just something that our scientists and knowledgeable people are going to have to do.
I mean, if we could teleport the smell off people, and make people clean all the time, that would be good. You wouldn't have to take a shower. It'd be like a sonic shower, I guess that's what they'd call it. But, you would want the right things for that. The right stuff to make that work. But you're, you I mean, we're probably centuries away from a wristwatch that could teleport something to you. And all that information would have to be protected by the government. You'd have to protect the source code, protect what it could make, and so that's why I'd have to say that we have to do this right. But most people just want to be able to go from one place to another and, have food and, luxury and be able to develop their life in a way that's better for them. But we could really help humanity with this if we are able to do this feat. And it would cause the world to change like the internet changed the world, like social media changed the world, like the automobile changed the world, like the locomotive changed the world. These things changed the world. And this is really another one. Robots would change the world. And so really, when you're taking this understanding, is you gotta know that this changes the world a lot more than we know. And a lot of inventions come about from this. And we have to figure out these inventions and know that, there's a next level to things, and we have to get there. But
well, I think it's just going to take a lot of patience and slow work to accomplish this. And it's going to need a lot of scientific knowledge, and it's not a thing that a great amount of people have that scientific knowledge and enough to work on this stuff.
I mean, to build like the brain of a robot would take a lot of work. And most people, 99% of the population, wouldn't understand it. I think that probably the same thing would go towards the mathematical and physics of what a teleporter would do. I mean, you would take a lot of work to be able to figure that out, and it's more like, how in the world would you figure that out? And so it's a major feat that the world would have to be able to make. But we're trying to, I mean, if we could if we can teleport signals to do something, I think maybe we can teleport a person, but we're just not there yet.
Yeah, it's gonna.
I mean, it's probably definitely. What were you gonna say?
I think it's gonna take. Say, well, we'll be figuring this much out in a year, or we'll be trying to reach this point in 5 years, or whatever they're trying to do. Because I don't think it's going to be a very easy thing to do.
No, I don't think it is either.
And the thing is, they're not going to be able to start saying, well, we're going to rush into this and get it done, you know. They're just going to have to go slow.
Yeah.
And human beings are very impatient about things, and so it's going to be difficult.
Yeah. So it's a difficult road, but humanity can do that. We just have to work out some of the parameters with that. But man, we got about an hour of recording done. Was there any other thing that we hadn't included in there that you want to include?
I think that's about all I had that I could think of. But I'm just saying that people are just going to have to be patient and go slow and not rush, because it's they have to have the knowledge to do this.
Yeah, so I mean, this stuff requires probably quantum physics, and we're barely in the source code with quantum physics. As far as things are concerned, and we're barely moving in these things. In a way, we developed quantum computers to make the ability to do this stuff, but we don't know like how to do everything for it.
So it's just gonna take a lot of time for it to slowly be thought out and worked out. Because sometimes you're doing something you think it's going to work out, but it's not really going to work out.
Yeah.
So it's just going to be a very slow process.
Yeah. So,
and hopefully people won't get too impatient and start doing stuff that's not going to be able to work out, or it's going to be causing harm.
yeah. So the next level of smartphone could be a teleportation smartphone. So that would be cool. Be able to teleport things with your smartphone or your watch, teleportation watch. Cool if you could like turn invisible too and be a superhero.
Well, I just hope people don't get too impatient and start causing more confusion than can be handled.
Yeah.
And it's going to be a thing that people have to have a lot of knowledge to do this, and I'm not sure how many people have that much knowledge.
Yeah. And that's where we get to, I guess, with things, is just we want to be able to do that kind of stuff. I mean, and I wonder, like, how in the world could you make a smartphone teleport, or a teleporting smartphone, and wondering how that affects it chemistry wise, and you know how would you do that? And it's so advanced, but I'm surprised at some of these inventions that have occurred over the past 20 years. This thing I'm holding in the hand recording, this smartphone. How in the world did this come about? I mean, it's so advanced and everything. It's just a regular store-bought smartphone, but
Well, it's just going to be a lot for knowledgeable people to be figuring out, and being patient to go slow and develop this stuff, that it won't cause more harm to the citizens or to the world. And so I just ask the Lord that these people will be patient.
me too.
And we have to remember that the Lord God is in charge of everything, and human beings are just his handmaidens to do things.
That's so true. I mean, you could use teleportation to create objects, to do construction work, to just make a world, and make the world around you, and it's so advanced. How in the world, uh, the government could make sidewalks with teleportation, or make a house with teleportation, and it goes up to the planet, which is what we talked about in the other segment. But yeah, I mean, you could trim trees with it. You could do all sorts of things with it.
Well, that's the main thing, that you can go slow and figure out exactly what this can be used for, and what you can do for the world, and just make sure you're not causing more harm to citizens than can be taken care of.
Yeah.
So that's about as much as I know to be able to think out about this.
Yeah, I mean, God himself, could teleport people around, and, you know, and so I mean that itself is powerful. I mean, people could get teleported around or moved around, and we have to come up with search parameters and and different levels of understanding to figure out how to keep track of things, and we have to do this in a wise way where we create the world right, and we want to create non-teleportation zones, and we have to create teleportation zones, and to me it's more a box that you enter and exit, and go towards, and we want to get to the watch with that, and that would be cool. That would be cool. But then we got quite a bit of information. I kind of wonder about that camouflage watch. Yeah, that'd be cool. But yeah, I think my grandma's done for the day. But we are just speaking about this and enjoying ourselves, and I'm glad that we've had this conversation, and you guys have a great one. Bye. Bye. I guess she doesn't. Okay. Bye.